All right, welcome to this very special episode of Angel in the Afternoon. I'm Angel Rivera. Nobody else is with me because this is just an episode with me fully going over, the indictment against President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. And, it's 25 pages. And initially, I was going to do this on the show on Angel in the Afternoon, but I realized it would take way too long, and it'll probably bore Steph and Alex. So I would rather just do it on my own, pre-recorded, you know, so I don't have to worry about boring people or boring them at least. So, if you guys are interested in this, please give it a like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. So, yeah, let's get into it because we got a lot to go over here. So this is from the Southern District Court, or United States District Court, Southern District of New York. It was a sealed indictment until now, of course, since finally, Maduro has been arrested. But really, let's keep it real, it was a abduction or kidnapping, however you want to call it. Um, let's see. It's the United States of America versus Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Caballo, no, Cabello, Rondon, Ramon Rodriguez Jaquin, Celia de la Flores de Maduro, that's his wife, and Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolesito, aka the Prince, and Hector Rutherford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, are the defendants. So these are all your defendants in this lawsuit, and or not lawsuit, but indictment, criminal indictment. And let's see here. If you appreciate this, and I'm kind of a legal nerd too, so which is why I kind of go try. I want to go over this too. Let me kick up my coffee. Excuse me. Well, let's get into it, because let's see, because there's an old saying among lawyers and among legal people. It's like you can indict a ham sandwich. So basically, what that means is you can indict anyone for anything, and ultimately it doesn't matter because you can indict anyone for anything essentially. So let's start this. The grand jury charges. The introduction. For over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their position in public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine to the United States. Let's see if this indictment actually proves that or not. Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, is at the forefront of that corruption and has partnered with his co-conspirators to use his illegally obtained authority and institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine into the United States. Since his early days in the Venezuelan government, Maduro Moros has tarnished every public office he's held. As a member of the Venezuela National Assembly, Maduro Moros moved loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. Really? Any evidence for that? Let's see, let's keep reading. As Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro Moros provided Venezuelan diplomatic passports to drug traffickers and facilitated diplomatic cover for planes used by money launderers to repatriate drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela. As Venezuela's president and now quote unquote de facto ruler, I don't know why they put it like that, he is the legal president. They want to make it seem like he isn't. Maduro Moros allows cocaine fueled corruption to flourish for his own benefit, for the benefit of members of his ruling regime, and for the benefit of his family members. So far, there's no evidence for any of this. This is all speculation, but let's see. Maybe there is some sort of evidence for this. Yeah, right. Let's see. Number 3. Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, now sits on top of a corrupt, illegitimate government that for decades have leveraged government power to protect and promote illegal activity, including drug trafficking. That drug trafficking has enriched and entrenched Venezuela's political and military elite, including the Minister of the Interior, Justice, and Peace, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, the defendant and former Minister of the Interior and Justice, Ramon Rodriguez Jaquin, the defendant. That massive scale drug trafficking has also concentrated power and wealth in the hands of Moros family, including his wife, the reported First Lady of Venezuela, Celia Adela Flores de Maduro. By the way, she is the first lady, not the purported first lady. The defendant Maduro Moro's son, members of Venezuela's National Assembly, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, the defendant, the cycle of narcotics based corruption lined the pockets of Venezuelan officials and their families while also benefiting violent narco terrorists to operate with impunity on Venezuelan soil. I got lost here for a second. Sorry. Venezuelan soil help produce and protect and transport tons of cocaine from the United States. Again, cocaine is not transported through Venezuela. Like it, I don't know the obsession with this. Hold on. Is it the insistence of trying to tie the socialist Venezuelan government to drug trafficking is just so far is absurd. But let's continue. At various times since in or about 1999, Venezuelan officials, including Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, and Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, defendants, have partnered with narco terrorists from the Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, or FARC, Ejército de Liberación Nacional, ELN, the Sinaloa cartel, the Zetas, the Tren de Aragua, including Tren de Aragua's leader Hector Rutherford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, a defendant in some. Maduro Moros and his co-conspirators have for decades partnered with some of the most violent and prolific drug traffickers and narco-terrorists in the world and relied on corrupt officials throughout the region to distribute tons of cocaine in the United States. So, this is now, looks like a biography of the defendants. Let's start here. Nicolas Maduro Moros, a defendant and Venezuelan citizen, was previously the president of Venezuela. Well, that's not true. He still is. In fact, he still is recognized as the president of Venezuela by Venezuela's own Supreme Court. So, it was previously is false. And now having to remain in power despite losses in recent elections. Any evidence for that? Might get no, of course not. A de facto but illegitimate ruler of the country, Maduro Moros also previously held a seat in Venezuela's National Assembly between in or about 2000 and in or about 2006 acted as Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Between in or about 2006 and in or about 2013 acted as the Vice President of Venezuela. In or about 2013. Maduro Moros succeeded the Venezuelan presidency after former President Hugo Chavez died in or about 2013, and during Maduro Moros' own presidency continued to participate in cocaine trafficking with drug dealer and narco-terrorist groups. In or about 2018, Maduro Moros declared victory in a disputed internationally condemned presidential election in Venezuela. That's totally made up. In or about 2019, Venezuela's National Assembly invoked the Venezuelan Constitution and declared Maduro Moros has usurped power and was not legitimate president of Venezuela. Well, that's not true. Nonetheless, Maduro Moros continued to exercise the powers of the Venezuelan presidency, causing more than 50 countries, including the United States, to refuse to recognize Maduro Moros as the Venezuela's head of state. In or about 2024, Venezuela had another presidential election that was again widely criticized by the international community. What they mean by international community is the U.S. and their vassal states, in which Maduro Moros declared himself the winner despite widespread condemnation. By who? By the U.S. and their vassal states. Diosdado Cabello Rondon, not like Kit Cabello, but Diosdado Cabello Rondon, a defendant, a Venezuelan citizen, is the Minister of the Interior, Justice, and Peace, a member of the Venezuelan Armed Forces, and the Vice President of the ruling United Socialist Party of Venezuela. Cabello Rondon is widely recognized as one of the most powerful officials in Venezuela. Cabello Rondon previously acted as Chief of Staff to Chavez in about 2001, Vice President of Venezuela in or about 2002, the Governor of Venezuela's Miranda State in or about 2004, in or about 2008, and the President of Venezuela's National Assembly between in or about 2012 and in or about 2016. Between in or about 2017 and in or about 2020, Cabello Rondon acted as a member of then President of Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly following the illegitimate creation of the National Constituent Assembly, which siphoned the constitutional powers of Venezuela's National Assembly and further entrenched Maduro Moros' regime. Following this dissolution of the National Constituent Assembly in or about 2020, Cabello Rondon became the member of Venezuela's National Assembly between in or about 2021 and in or about 2024. Okay, let's see. Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, a defendant, is a Venezuelan politician, former member of the armed forces, who served as the Minister of Interior and Justice between in or about 2002 and 2008, between in or about 2012 and in or about 2017. Rodriguez Chaquin is the governor of Venezuela's Guarico state. So I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Celia de la Flores de Maduro, the defendant, is the de facto First Lady of Venezuela. She is the First Lady, having married Nicolas Maduro's models, the defendant, in or about 2013. Flores de Maduro has a long standing political career. Flores de Maduro had acted as President of the National Assembly, starting with Maduro models left that role to become the Minister of Foreign Affairs between in or about 2006 and in or about 2011 as the Attorney General of Venezuela, between in or about 2012 or in or about 2013 as a member of the National Constituent Assembly starting in or about 2017. So, the other defendant, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince and defendant, is the son of Nicolas Maduro Moros, a defendant, and a corrupt Venezuelan politician. Really, any evidence for that? Maduro Guerra entered politics after his father. Maduro Moros became the president of Venezuela in or about 2013. At that time, Maduro Moros appointed Maduro Guerra as the head of the Corps of Special Inspectors of the Presidency, a position which was created for Maduro Guerra. In or about 2017, Maduro Guerra entered Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly. In or about January 2021, Maduro Guerra entered the Venezuelan National Assembly, where he continues to hold office. Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, a defendant, has over a decade served as leader or co-leader of the Tren de Aragua, during which time Tren de Aragua members and associates have engaged in wide range of crimes, including extortions, kidnapping, murder, drug trafficking, gun trafficking, prostitution, sex trafficking, robberies, bank burglaries, and money laundering in Venezuela, the United States, and elsewhere. So let's continue with this. So far, not a shred of evidence has been provided. It's just baseless and baseless allegations, basically. The FARC, since its founding in 1964, has become one of the largest producers of cocaine in the world. The FARC has generated significant revenue through its cocaine trafficking, which has been used to fund its operations, including, for example, large-scale weapons purchases and terrorist attacks. The FARC have also directed violent acts against United States persons and property in foreign jurisdictions, including not limited to Colombia. For example, from at least in or about 2003 to in or about 2008, FARC leadership ordered FARC members to kidnap and murder United States citizens and to attack United States interests in order to dissuade the United States from continuing to fumigate and disrupt the FARC's manufacturing and distribution of cocaine and cocaine paste. Consistent with these activities, in or about 1997, the U.S. Department of State designated FARC as a foreign terrorist organization pursuant to Section 219 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. On November 30th, 2021, the State Department removed FARC from the FTO list and simultaneously designated two FARC successor organizations as FTOs pursuant to Section 219 of the INA. The FARC EP and Segunda Mariquita, both of which remain designated as the filing of the superseding indictment. The ELN has operated as Colombia's terrorist group since 1965, dedicated to the violent overthrow of the democratically elected government of Colombia. In furtherance of its anti-government agenda, the ELN has committed kidnappings, bombings, and other violent attacks targeting civilians and the Colombian law enforcement. In addition, the ELN exports tons of cocaine annually to the United States and elsewhere in order to finance terrorist activities, and has at various times partnered with other Colombian guerrilla groups in pursuit of its cocaine trafficking and violent agenda. Consistent with those activities, in or about 1997, the State Department designated the ELN as an FTO pursuant to Section 219 of the INA. ELN remains so designated at the filing of the superseding indictment. So far, I don't know what the ELN has anything to do with this, and now they're going to bring up the Sinaloa cartel. The Sinaloa cartel, based in Mexican state of Sinaloa, has its roots in the late 1980s when so-called Mexican Federation functioned as a council of representatives from the respective drug trafficking organizations of its principal leaders. Excuse me. During the late 1980s and 1990s, the members of the Mexican Federation partnered with Colombian sources supplied to transport drugs through Mexico into the United States. In the early 2000s, Joaquin Archibaldado Guzman Loreda, aka Chapo, and Ismael Zambedia Garcia, aka formed a partnership that led to the transformation of the Mexican Federation into the Sinaloa cartel, which became the largest drug trafficking organization in the world. At present, the Sinaloa cartel is highly organized and active in more than half of all states in Mexico. Through a sophisticated and heavily armed security apparatus, the Sinaloa cartel wields power through fear, threats, and violence, including killing police, civilians, and members of other criminal groups who encroach in their territory without authorization. Members of the Sinaloa cartel may also be killed for perceived disloyalty, disobedience, or to send a message. To further and protect its drug interests, Sinaloa cartel engages in other criminal conduct by including bribery, extortion, and weapons trafficking, and it as an additional means of revenue and profit. The Sinaloa cartel engages in migrant smuggling and human trafficking. Consistent with these activities, in or about February 2025, the State Department designated the Sinaloa cartel as an FTO pursuant to Section 19 of the INA. The Sinaloa cartel remains so designated as the following in the superseding indictment. So these indictments tend to repeat themselves over and over again, which reading it out loud is kind of annoying, but let's continue with this. Now they're bringing up the Zetas. The Zetas, later known as the Cartel del Noreste, or the Cartel del Northeast, is a violent and prolific transnational drug organization based in northeastern Mexico involved in drug trafficking, kidnapping, extortion, human smuggling, and other illicit activities. The Zetas use violence to exert criminal control, including attacks against government officials in Mexico. Between in or about 2000 and in or about 2010, the Zetas formed an alliance with the Gulf Cartel, a group of drug traffickers primarily based in northern Mexico, whereby the Zetas served as an armed militaristic wing of the Gulf Cartel, to maintain control of drug trafficking routes throughout Mexico. Jesus. The Zetas recruited members of Mexican special forces along with drug traffickers who never served the military or were the police force to join the organization. In or about the summer of 2010, the Zetas and Gulf Cartel alliance fractured after a period of intense violence between the organizations. At that time, the Zetas operated as an independent drug trafficking organization that imported ton quantities of cocaine into the United States. Consistent with these activities, in or about February 2025, State Department designated CDN, formerly known as the Zetas, as the FTO pursuant to Section 219 INN. CDN referred as to the Zetas in the superseding indictment and remains so designated as the filing the superseding indictment. The TDA, Tren de Aragua, is a violent transnational criminal organization that originated as a prison gang in Venezuela. Tren de Aragua has expanded its criminal network throughout the Western Hemisphere and established a presence in the United States, including New York. Tren de Aragua's criminal activities include human trafficking and other illicit acts. TDA has developed additional revenue sources through a range of other criminal activities, including drug trafficking, firearms trafficking, commercial sex trafficking, kidnapping, robbery, theft, fraud, and extortion. TDA members also commit murder, assault, and other acts of violence to enforce and further the organization's criminal activities. CDA has formed ties with other criminal groups operating in the Western Hemisphere and at times willing to collaborate with other criminal groups and organizations on a local and ad hoc basis. Consistent with these activities, in or about February 2025, State Department designated TDA as an FTO pursuant to Section 19 of INA. TDA remains so designated as of the filing of this superseding indictment. So far, that's just a biography of all the defendants and everything that's gone on so far. Is it relevant? No, but at the same time, it needs to be read in order to establish the rest of this. So let me get a drink of coffee and then I'll continue. Now, this is the part where I guess they try to connect Nicolas Maduro to all these drug trafficking organizations. Let's see whether they can do it. The defendants corrupt drug trafficking in connection to narco-terrorist groups. Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, like former President Chavez before him, participates and perpetuates and protects a culture of corruption which powerful Venezuelan elites enrich themselves through drug trafficking and the protection of their partner drug traffickers. That's an irony there because that was the exact same thing that the previous neoliberal right wing Venezuelan government was accused of. That exact same thing. Uh, Participates and perpetuates and protects a culture of corruption, which powerful Venezuelan elites enrich themselves through drug trafficking and the protection of their partner drug traffickers. That sounds like exactly what the previous Venezuelan government was accused of. But let's just project that onto Nicolas Maduro and Hugo Chavez and the socialists. The profits of that illegal activity flowed to corrupt rank and file civilian military and intelligence officials who operate in a patronage system run by those at the top, referred to as the Cartel de los Soles, no evidence for that, or the Cartel de Suns. They don't have any evidence that this cartel even exists, let alone Nicolas Maduro is the leader of it. A reference to the sun insignia affixed to the uniforms of high ranking Venezuelan military officials. Venezuela sits on a geographically valuable location for drug traffickers with northern access to the Caribbean Sea via several large ports and western access to the mountainous regions of Colombia, where coca is grown and turned into a vast majority of the world's cocaine supply in jungle laboratories. Starting in or about 1999, right when Hugo Chavez became president, of course, it wasn't before that. It wasn't with the neoliberal government. As soon as the socialists became in power, all of a sudden, Venezuela became a safe haven for drug traffickers willing to pay for protection and support corrupt Venezuelan civilian and military officials who operated outside the reach of Colombian law enforcement and armed forces bolstered by the United States anti-narcotics assistance. In that environment, cocaine trafficking flourished. Venezuelan officials and their family members, including Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores Maduro, and Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, the defendants partnered with narcotics traffickers and narco-terrorist groups who dispatch processed cocaine from Venezuela into the United States via transshipment points in the Caribbean and Central America, such as Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico. By in or about 2020, State Department estimated between 200 and 250 tons of cocaine were trafficked through Venezuela annually. Again, any evidence for this? Because I would love to see that evidence. This is all allegations. These are all baseless allegations so far. The maritime shipments were shipped north from Venezuela coastline using go-fast vessels, fishing boats, and container ships. Air shipments were often dispatched from clandestine airships, typically made of dirt or grass, also from commercial airports under the control of corrupt government and military officials. Through this drug trafficking, Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, and corrupt members of his regime enabled corruption fueled by drug trafficking throughout the region. The transshipment points of Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico similarly relied on a culture of corruption, in which cocaine traffickers operating in those countries paid a portion of their profits to politicians who protected and aided them. In turn, these politicians used cocaine-fueled payments to maintain and augment their political power. So too were politicians along the Caribbean route corrupted by cocaine traffickers who would pay them for protection from arrest and allow favored traffickers to operate with impunity as they trafficked cocaine from Venezuela north towards the United States. Thus, at every step, relying on the producers of Colombia, transporters, and distributors in Venezuela, and recipients and redistributors on transshipment points north, the traffickers enriched themselves and their corrupt benefactors who protected and aided them. Again, these are all baseless allegations so far. Similarly, Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, and defendants and other corrupt members of the regime facilitated the empowerment and growth of violent narco-terrorist groups, fueling their organization with cocaine profits. These narco-terrorist organizations not only worked directly with and sent profits to high-ranking Venezuelan officials, but also reaped the benefits of increased value that the cocaine at each transshipment point along the way to the United States, where demand and thus the price of cocaine is at its highest. The organization includes the FARC and the ELN, which controls cocaine production in the mountainous region of Colombia. The Sinaloa cartel and the Zetas, which controls the routes in Central America and the methods for crossing cocaine from Mexico into the United States. Tren de Agua, which controls a criminal network able to assist with the transportation of cocaine within Venezuela and on the Venezuelan coast. Alright, so here are the overt acts and furtherance of defendants' drug trafficking and narco-terrorist conspiracies. So far, they have not proven at all that Nicolas Maduro was in charge of the cartel de Solis. Hell, they're not even proven in this indictment that the cartel de Solis even existed or exists. So let's see. The defendants, together with others, engaged in relentless campaign of cocaine trafficking throughout the time period charged in the superseding indictment, resulting in a distribution of thousands of tons of cocaine into the United States. Throughout Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendants, along with members of his family and other corrupt officials, provided law enforcement cover and logistical support for transport of cocaine through Venezuela, with the knowledge of drug trafficking partners would move the cocaine north into the United States. While this conduct occurred regularly and repeatedly throughout the time period charged, below are certain examples of acts engaged in by defendants in furtherance of their drug trafficking, including a partnership with narco-terrorist groups. So let's see. Let's see if they actually can prove this, even though most likely it's going to be more baseless allegations. Between approximately 2006 and 2008, while acting as Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro Moros sold Venezuelan diplomatic passports to individuals that Maduro Moros knew were drug traffickers in order to assist traffickers seeking to move drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela under diplomatic cover. When the drug traffickers needed to move drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela under diplomatic cover. When the drug traffickers needed to move drug proceeds from Mexico back to Venezuela, Maduro Moros facilitated the movement of private planes under diplomatic cover to ensure that flights received no scrutiny from law enforcement or the military. On these occasions, Maduro Moros called the Venezuelan embassy in Mexico to advise a diplomatic mission would be arriving by private plane. Then, while the traffickers met with Venezuela's ambassador to Mexico under the auspices of diplomatic missions from Maduro Moros, their plane was loaded with drug proceeds. The plane then would return to Venezuela under diplomatic cover. Nice. Except there's not a shred of evidence for any of this. This comes across as more just baseless speculation. In approximately 2007, Celia Dila Flores and Maduro, the defendant, that's Nicolas Maduro's wife, attended a meeting which Flores de Maduro accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes to broker a meeting between large-scale drug traffickers and the director of Venezuela's National Anti-Drug Office. Nestor Rivera Torres, the drug trafficker, later arranged to pay a monthly bribe to Revolol Torres, in addition to approximately $100,000 for each flight that was transporting cocaine to ensure the flight's safe passage, a portion of which was paid to Flores and Maduro. On or about 2015, Reverol Torres was charged with narcotics offenses in Eastern District of New York and is a fugitive. As soon as is an indictment, all of a sudden you're a fugitive, even though you're not a citizen of the United States. You're not running, but somehow you're a fugitive because they indicted you on charges that are very likely trumped up. No pun intended. Between in or about 2003 and or about 2011, while Diosdado Cabello Rondon, the defendant, occupied various positions in Venezuela, the Zetas worked with a group of Colombian traffickers to dispatch cargo containers on container ships carrying 5 to 6 tons of cocaine each, and sometimes as much as 20 tons each, from ports of Venezuela to ports in Mexico and ultimately the United States. Tens of thousands of kilograms of cocaine sent by this group were protected by Venezuelan military officials referred to as the generals. Sorry. Between in or about 2004 and about 2015, Maduro Moros and Flores de Maduro worked together to traffic cocaine, much of which has been previously seized by the Venezuelan law enforcement, with the assistance of armed military escorts. During this time, Maduro Moros and Flores de Maduro maintained their own groups of state-sponsored gangs known as colectivos to facilitate and protect their drug trafficking operation. Maduro Moros and Flores de Maduro ordered kidnappings, beatings, murders against those who owed them drug money and otherwise undermined their drug trafficking operation, including ordering the murder of a local drug boss in Caracas, Venezuela. Man, these are nothing but baseless accusations so far. In or about 2006, Venezuelan officials dispatched more than 5.5 tons of cocaine from Venezuela to Mexico in a DC-9 jet. Cabello Rondon, then director of Venezuela's military intelligence agency, Hugo Amando Carvijal Barrios, aka Pollo, who in June 2025 pled guilty to the this district to narco terrorism, narcotics, and weapons offenses in the first superseding indictment of this case. And Venezuela National Guard Captain Vasily Kotokiski Villarreal Ramirez worked with other members of the Venezuelan regime to coordinate shipments. The more than 5.5 tons of cocaine were transported in approximately 5 vans to a hangar reserved for the Venezuelan president at Simon Bolivar International Airport in Mariqueta, Venezuela, the Mariqueta Airport. At the Mariqueta Airport, members of the Venezuelan National Guard loaded the cocaine into planes, which took off using a flight plan that Villarreal Ramirez approved of in exchange for bribes. Despite the payments of these bribes, when the plane landed at Ciudad de Carmen Airport in Campeche, Mexico, Mexican authorities seized more than 5.5 tons of cocaine. Shortly after the seizure, Villarreal Ramirez told the Venezuelan drug traffickers who worked with him that they needed to pay Cabello Rondon a bribe to assure that those that assisted him in the Mariqueta airport would not be arrested. Villarreal Ramirez then arranged a meeting between Cabello Rondon, after which the traffickers paid approximately $2.5 million to Cabello Rondon through his family member. In or about 2013, Villarreal Ramirez was charged with narcotic offenses in the Eastern District of New York and is a fugitive. So here we go again. You charge somebody here in the U.S., they get indicted, and they're a fugitive, even though they're not American citizens and never left the country. All right. Between approximately 2006 and 2008, Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, the defendant, worked with one of the largest drug traffickers in Venezuela. Walid Maked, members of the Venezuelan regime, helped him protect Marquez's cocaine shipments that were transported from San Fernando de Apure, Venezuela, to Valencia, Venezuela, and then were sent by plane from the Valencia International Airport to Mexico and other locations in Central America for eventual distribution to the United States. Between in or about 2008 and about 2009, Guerrero Flores also provided another major Venezuelan drug trafficker with protection for cocaine shipments through Venezuela, including in providing armed men who carried, among other, oh God, keep yawning. By providing armed men who carried, among others, automatic weapons, AK-47s, MP5s, AR-15, as well as grenades. At times, Guerrero Flores personally accompanied large cocaine loads as they were loaded by teams of armed men en route to airports or airships with transport to North and eventual distribution to the United States. Guerrero Flores was paid a fee per kilogram of cocaine transported or received, and he sometimes received interest in portions with these massive cocaine shipments in lieu of payment. The traffickers that Guerrero Flores worked with moved thousands of kilograms of her shipment multiple times per month, resulting in the distribution of hundreds of tons of cocaine to the United States. In or about 2009, Macled was charged with narcotics offenses in this district, and now is a fugitive. In or about 2008, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, the defendant, maintained a large estate in Barnia State, Venezuela, which contained a large FARC encampment and training school, with approximately 200 armed FARC members carrying automatic rifles at any given time. During this time, Rodriguez Chaquin accepted tens of thousands of dollars in bribes to use his corrupt influence to shield a large-scale drug trafficker from arrest and extradition. During the subsequent meetings with the drug trafficker between 2008 and about 2010, Rodriguez Chaquin discussed trafficking multi-ton quantities of cocaine with other Venezuelan officials, including Carvajal Barrios. So far, all this is just baseless allegations that the United States is putting out there. In or about 2011, the Sinaloa cartel's then leader, Joaquin Archibaldo, Guzman Loria, aka Chapo, financed cocaine laboratories in Colombia. Cocaine produced in these laboratories was transported under the protection of the FARC into Venezuela. received protection en route to an airstrip from Calvijal Barrios, a close ally of Maduro Moros and Cabello Rondon. Really? So, El Chapo was close friends with Nicolas Maduro? Really? Any evidence for this? Because I've not seen a shred of evidence for this. And I've read now nearly 15 pages of this indictment. On or about September 2013, mere months after Maduro Moros succeeded to the Venezuelan presidency, Venezuelan officials dispatched approximately 1.3 tons of cocaine onto a commercial flight from the Mariquita airport to Paris Charles de Gaulle airport. French authorities seized the cocaine. Following the seizure, Maduro Moros convened a meeting with, among others, Cabello Rondon and Calvijal Barrios, El Chapo. During this meeting, Maduro Moros and Cabello Rondon and Calvijal Barrios that they should not have used the Mariquita airport for drug trafficking. In or about 2006, after 2006 seizure in Mexico, and that they should instead use other well-established routes, drug routes, and locations to dispatch cocaine. Jesus Christ. Ugh. I'm not even that exhausted, and I just had a cup of coffee, so I don't know why I'm yawning. Shortly thereafter, Maduro Moros and others authorized the arrest of certain Venezuelan military officials in an effort to divert public and law enforcement scrutiny away from Maduro Moros, Cabello Rondon, and Calvijal Barrios' participation in the shipment and its cover-up. Let's see. Between approximately 2014 and 2015, a captain in the Venezuelan National Guard in Margarita Island, Venezuela, coordinated hotels, transportation, women, and food for visits by Venezuelan officials, including Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, a defendant, who visited Margarita Island approximately twice monthly. Maduro Guerra would arrive in a Falcon 900 plane owned by the Venezuelan state oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela. Before leaving the island, Maduro Guerra's PDVSA plane would be loaded sometime with the assistance of armed sergeants, with large packages wrapped in the tape that the captain understood were drugs. Maduro Guerra was present while the PDVSA plane was locked and was loaded, and on more than one occasion stated that the plane could go where it wanted, including the United States. Between in or about October 2015 or in or about November 2015, Efraín Campo Flores and Francisco Flores de Frietas, two relatives of Nicolas Maduro Moros and Flores de Maduro, agreed during the recorded meeting with the DEA confidential sources to dispatch multi-hundred-kilogram cocaine shipments from Maduro Moros, the president's hangar, at the Mariquita airport. Where am I? I just got lost again. Hold on. Sorry about that. There we go. During the recorded meetings with the sources, Campo Flores and Flores de Frietas explained that they were at war with the United States, described as the cartel for Los Soles, discussed a connection between the commander of FARC and your random podcaster. So far, still, not a shred of evidence presented for this. It's just baseless allegation after baseless allegation after baseless allegation. Supposedly high ranked, and indicated that they were seeking to raise $20 million in drug proceeds to support a campaign by Flores and Maduro in connection to the late 2015 election of the Venezuelan National Assembly. Campo Flores referred to Maduro Moros as his father, quote unquote, and stated that what we want is for him to take control of the National Assembly. In or about November 2016, Campo Flores and Flores de Frietas were convicted at trial in this district for conspiring to import cocaine into the United States. In or about 2017, Maduro Guerra worked to ship hundreds of kilograms of cocaine from Venezuela to Miami. During this time, Maduro Guerra spoke with his drug trafficking partners about, among other things, shipping low-quality cocaine to New York because it could not be sold in Miami, arranging a 500-kilogram shipment of cocaine to be unloaded from a cargo container near Miami, and using scrap metals containers to smuggle cocaine to the ports of New York. More baseless allegations, ladies and gentlemen. In or about 2018 and 2019, Rodriguez Chaquin made multiple trips from Barney Estate to Caracas with a key FARC leader for meetings with Maduro Moros. These trips were a part of a long history of Rodriguez Chaquin's regular meetings with FARC and ELN members, both of their jungle encampments. Barney's because Rodriguez Chacon was assigned by Maduro Moros to provide the FARC and ELN with protection and support. Rodriguez Chaquin also brought FARC leaders to meet with Maduro Moros at Miraflores, which is the presidential mansion, the president's palace in Caracas, as well as the Fuente Tijuana, the chief medical complex in FARC. Let's see. In or about July 2019, shortly after certain FARC leaders had publicly returned to arms despite signing the recent peace accord with the Colombian government, Maduro Moros and Calabello Randon attended a videotaped press conference which Maduro Moros announced that FARC and its leaders were welcome to Venezuela. On or about 2019, TDA's leader Guerrero Flores discussed drug trafficking with an individual he understood to be working with the Venezuelan regime. Over multiple calls, Guerrero Flores offered to provide escort services for drug loads, explaining that Guerrero Flores and TDA had control over the coastlines and the what's I'm looking for. Let me reread this because I kind of forgot what my point was. In or about 2019, TDA's leader Guerrero Flores discussed trafficking with an individual he understood to be working with the Venezuelan regime. Over multiple calls, Guerrero Flores helped to provide escort services for drug cartels, explaining that Guerrero Flores and the TDA had controlled the coastlines of Venezuela's Aragua state. Guerrero Flores, speaking from TDA's base of operation in Turacun prison, explained that TDA could handle the logistics of every aspect of the drug trade, including the use of storage compartment that Guerrero Flores and so-called cradles located on the beach in Aragua State is doing so. Guerrero Flores confirmed TDA's ability to protect over one ton of cocaine. In or about 2020, Maduro Guerra attended a meeting in Medellin, Colombia, with two representatives of FARC. During that meeting, Maduro Guerra discuss arrangements to move large quantities of cocaine and weapons through Colombia into the United States over the course of the next 6 years. In or about 2026, Maduro Guerra also discussed paying the FARC with weapons in connection with the cocaine travels. No, cocaine loads, rather. Sorry. In or about 2007, at the direction of Calvijal Barrios, Venezuelan General Cleaver Alicea Cordones delivered to FARC leadership more than 4 crates of weapons from the Venezuelan government, which included 20 grenades and 2 grenade launchers. In or about June 2023, Alcala Cordones pled guilty in this district to conspiring to provide material support to the FARC, an FTO pursuing to the third superseding information in this case. In or about 2022 and in or about 2024, Cabello Randon regularly traveled to clandestine airstrips controlled by the ELN near the Colombia-Venezuela border to ensure the cocaine's continued safe passage into Venezuelan territory. From these airstrips, cocaine was dispatched out of Venezuela on flights both approved by the Venezuelan military officials on clandestine flights designed to avoid detection by law enforcement or militaries in South and Central America. In or about the end of 2024, Cabello Randon received narcotics proceeds from cocaine trafficking. In or about 2025, Colombian drug traffickers discussed with an associate of Cabello Randon plans for continued cocaine trafficking through Venezuela. Okay. Again, not a shred of evidence I've seen here. There's nothing but baseless allegations, baseless speculation, and just all this is baseless. Because if they had real evidence, it would be in the indictment, at the very least, and not just baseless, over-the-top speculation. But here we go with the statutory allegations. So these are actually what he's charged with. Count 1, narco-terrorism conspiracy. Bullshit. But let's read this. Paragraphs 1 to 21 of the superseding indictment are realleged and incorporated by reference as though fully set forth herein. from at least in or about 1999 up to including about 2025, an offense began committed out of jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States. Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, and Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, the defendants, and other known and unknown, at least one whom has been and will be first brought and arrested into the Southern District of New York, intentionally and knowingly combined and conspired and confederated and agreed together and with each other to violate Title 21 United States Code Section 960A. It was a part of an object of the conspiracy that Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, and Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, the defendants and others known and unknown, would and did engage in conduct that we punishable under Title 21 United States Code Section 841A. If committed within a jurisdiction of the United States, the distribution of a possession with the intent to distribute 5 kilograms and more of mixtures and substances containing a detectable amount of cocaine, knowing and intending to provide directly and indirectly something of a pecuniary value to a person and organization that I butchered that word. Organization that has engaged and engages in terrorism and terrorist activities, as defined in Title 8 United States Code Section 1182A2B, or terrorism as defined in Title 22 United States Code Section 2656FD2, to wit, the following organizations have been designated the United States Secretary of State as FTOs pursuant to Section 219 of the INA. During times relevant to the superseding indictment, FARC-EP, Segunda Mariquetia, ELN, TDA, and the Sinaloa Cartel, CDN, known as the Zetas, and other organization members, operatives, and associates having knowledge of such organization and persons have engaged in terrorist activity and terrorism. In violation Title 21 United States Code Section 960A, Title 21 United States Code 968, and Title 18 United States Code Section 3238. Count 2, cocaine importation conspiracy. So far, these are more allegations, and it seems over the top and ridiculous. But let's read it. The count 2 is cocaine importation conspiracy. The grand jury further charges paragraphs 1 to 21 of superseding indictments are realleged and incorporated by reference as though fully set forth within. From at least 1999 up to including 2025, and an offense begun and committed out of jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States, Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia Adela Flores Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, a.k.a. Nicolasito, a.k.a. The Prince, and Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, a.k.a. Nino Guerrero, the defendants and others known and unknown, at least one who has been and will be first brought in to be arrested in the Southern District of New York. I feel like I'm broken record how many times I've read this in these indictments. But these indictments usually like that. They repeat themselves over and over and over and over and over again. So it's pretty annoying to read out loud. And I'm sure for the audience, annoying for me to say it. But I'm reading verbatim from the indictment. Intentionally and knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together with each other to violate provisions of Title 21 United States Code, Chapter 13, Subchapter 2. It was a part of an objective of the conspiracy that Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia Adela Flores Maduro, that's his wife, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, that's his son, a.k.a. Nicolasito, a.k.a. The Prince, and Hector Rosenfield Guerrero Flores, a.k.a. Nino Guerrero, the defendants and other known and unknown, would and did knowingly and intentionally import into the United States from a place outside thereof of a controlled substance in violation of Title 21 United States Code Sections 952A and 960A1. Jesus Christ. This is insane. And again, not a shred of evidence for any of this. I mean, there's no smoking gun for this at all. These are all just baseless allegations as of now. Unless there's some secret evidence that we don't know about. And I would not be surprised if they use secret evidence to try to convict Maduro, because that's all they got at this point. Just make it up and call it secret. It was further a part of an object of a conspiracy that Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia Adela Flores Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, a.k.a. Nicolasito, a.k.a. The Prince, and Hector Rutherford Guerrero Flores, a.k.a. Nino Guerrero, defendants, and others known and unknown, would and did manufacture, distribute, and possess with intent to distribute a controlled substance, intending knowingly and having reasonable cause to believe that such substance would be unlawfully imported into the United States and into waters within a distance of 12 miles of the coast of the United States in violation of Title 21 United States Code Section 959A and 960A3. It is further a part of an object conspiracy that Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores Maduro, and Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, and Hector Ruthenford Guerrero Flores, aka Neo Guerrero, defendants, and others known and unknown, would and did on board a aircraft registered in the United States manufacture, distribute, and possess the intent to distribute a controlled substance in violation of the United States Code or Title 21 United States Code Sections 959C and 960A3. I'm like a broken record now. Many times I said that sentence over and over again, but I'm reading verbatim from the indictment, so sorry about that. The controlled substance at Nicolas Maduro Moros Diosdado Cabrero Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores de Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, and Hector Ruthenford Guerrero Flores, aka Neo Guerrero, and defendants conspired to import the United States into the customs territory of the United States from a place outside thereof, manufacture and distribute, intending knowingly and having reasonable cause to believe such a substance would be unlawfully imported in the United States into the waters of distant 12 miles of the coast of the United States from a place outside thereof, and manufacture, distribute, possess on board an aircraft registered to the United States was 5 kilograms or more mixtures of substances containing a detectable amount of cocaine in violation of Title 21 United States Code Sections 960B1B, Title 21 United States Code 963, and Title 18 United States Code Section 3238. Good God. I'm a broken record, guys. That's all I could say. These indictments read like it just, you might as well record it and play it every time I need to say that sentence, because I've said that sentence at least 5 times in a row now. Count 3, possessions of machine guns and destructive devices. The grand jury further charges that paragraph 21 to 21 of superseding indictments are realleged and reincorporated by reference to fully set there herein. Excuse me, that I think it's either the cops or the ambulance, but I live in a big city, so sorry about that. From at least in or about 1999 up to and including in or about 2025 in an offense begun and committed out of the jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States, and for which at least one of 2 or more joint offenders have been and will be first brought and arrested in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores de Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, a.k.a. Nicolasito, a.k.a. the Prince, and Hector Ruthenford Guerrero Flores, a.k.a. Neo Guerrero, the defendants during and in relation to a drug trafficking crime for which they may be prosecuted in a court in the United States, to wit, for Maduro Moros Cabello Rondon. It's not Kip Cabello, by the way. And Rodriguez Chaquin, the controlled substance offenses charged in count 1 and 2. Wait a minute. Oh, this superseding indictment. I got lost there for a second. And for Flores and Maduro Guerra, and Guerrero Flores, the controlled substance offense charged in count 2 of the superseding indictment, knowingly use and carry firearms in furtherance of such crimes, knowingly possess firearms, and aided and abetted in the use of carrying possession firearms, to wit, machine guns, are capable of automatically shooting more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger, as well as destructive devices. This is Title 18 United States Code Sections 924C1A, 924C1B, and 3238 and 2. Now let's get to count 4. Oh my god, I have to read the same fucking shit I read in the first 3 shits. So, count 4, conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. The grand jury further charges paragraphs 1 to 21 in the superseding indictment are realleged and reincorporated by reference as though fully set forth herein. From at least in or about 1999, and including in or about 2025, an offense begun and committed out of the jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States, Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado, Cabello, Natkit, Cabello, Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia Adela Flores and Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, and Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, the defendants, and other known and unknown, at least one of whom has been and will be first brought and arrested into the Southern District of New York, intentionally knowing, combined, conspired, and confederated, and agreed together with each other to violate Title 18 United States Code Section 924C. Wow, there's not a shred of evidence for any of this. This is just like, it comes across as just smearing people and calling people drug dealers and drug lords just to call them that. But it was part of an object of the conspiracy that Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado, Cabello, Ramon, not Kit, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores de Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, and Hector Rufinford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, the defendants and others known and unknown during and in relation to a drug trafficking crime for which they may be prosecuted in the court of the United States, to wit, for Maduro Moros, Cabello Rondon, and Rodriguez Chaquin, the controlled substance offenses charged in counts 1 and 2 of the superseding indictment, and for Flores and Maduro Guerra, and Guerrero Flores, the controlled substance offense charged in count 2 of the superseding indictment, knowingly use and carry firearms in furtherance of such crimes, knowingly possess firearms, aided and abetted the use, carrying, possession of firearms, to wit, machine guns that are capable of automatically shooting more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger, as well as destructive devices in violation of Title 18 United States Code Sections 924C1A and 924C1B, Title 18 United States Code Section 9240 and 3238. Fucking hell. Okay, this is new. Looks like it's new. Forfeiture allegations. As a result of committing controlled substances offense charged in count 1, the superseding indictment, Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado, Cabello, Natkit, Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, the defendants shall forfeit to the United States pursuant to Title 21, United States Code Section 853 and 970, any or all property constitution or derived from any proceeds the defendants obtained directly, indirect, or indirectly as a result of the offenses, and any and all property used and intended to be used in any manner or part to commit and to facilitate the commission of the offense charged in count 1, the superseding indictment. In other words, whatever property was bought, whatever money they have, whatever went on during the alleged offenses will now be taken and will belong to the United States government. So they get to sell, they get to keep, do whatever they want with. This is what's called civil asset forfeiture. That's essentially what this is. It's taking people's property because because the police claimed they committed a crime without a conviction and without any evidence. So that's what this is here. Almost done. As a result of committing the controlled substance offense charged in count 2 of the superseding indictment, Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, and Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, the defendants shall forfeit to the United States pursuant to Title 21 United States Code Sections 853 and 970 any or all property constituted or derived from any proceeds the defendants obtained directly and or indirectly result of the offenses, and any all property used, intended, will be used, or to be used in any manner or part to commit to facilitate the commission of the offenses charged in count 2 of the superseding indictment. So more civil asset forfeiture, essentially, and because we accuse you of these crimes, now we get to take all your shit. As a result of committing the firearms offenses charged in counts 3 and 4 of the superseding indictment, Nicolas Maduro Moros Diosdado, Cabello, Natkit Cabello, Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores and Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolasito, aka the Prince, and Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, aka Nino Guerrero, the defendants shall forfeit to the United States and pursuant to Title 18 United States Code Section 924D all firearms and ammunition involved in used in the commission of the offenses charged in count 3 and 4 of the superseding indictment. Substitute assets provision. If any of the above describe forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Nakit Randon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, Celia de la Flores de Maduro, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, aka Nicolas Hito, aka the Prince, and Hector Rusenford Guerrero Flores, aka Neo Guerrero, the defendants cannot be located among the upon the exercise of due diligence, has been transferred or sold to deposit with a third person, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially diminished in value, or has been commingled with other property which cannot be subdivided without difficulty. It is the intent of the United States. It is the intent of the United States pursuant to Title 21 United States Code Section 853P in Title 20 United States Code 2461C to seek forfeiture of any property or of the defendant up to the value of above the forfeitable property. So Title 18 United States Code 9 Section 924, Title 21 United States Code Sections 853 970, and Title 20 United States Code Section 2461. So the United States Attorney signed this as Jay Clayton. I don't know who this is. It's the foreperson. Finally. Holy shit. Finally. God. Well, that was a bit ridiculous. How long am I filming for? An hour. So it took me an hour to read through this entire indictment. And let's see here. So, as I said before, this indictment, there's not a shred of evidence to any of this. They got nothing. All they got is a bunch of baseless allegations. They got a bunch of baseless allegations. They got very little evidence for any of this. They first of all, they have to prove that the Cartel de los Soles even exists, or Cartel of the Sun. They also have to prove that Nicolas Maduro is the leader of this cartel, even though the cartel doesn't exist. They also have to prove without a reasonable doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, that drugs went through Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro somehow knew El Chapo Guzman, knew members of the Zeto cartel, knew members of the FARC, he and his co-conspirators knew all these people, and somehow pulled off this grand conspiracy theory to get drugs, particularly cocaine, in the United States. So the United States government the Department of Justice have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the Cartel de los Soles exists, that Nicolas Maduro is the leader of said cartel. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt this grand conspiracy between the FARC, the Venezuelan government, the Mexican cartel, drug cartels, El Chapo, and all these other, like, this is a grand conspiracy theory which I'm not even sure that any leader could pull off. So there's not a shred of evidence for any of this, guys. I mean, it's like, and good and wait, who did they hire? And hold on, bear with me 1 second. Nicolas Maduro did hire the attorney that Julian Assange hired, and I'm blanking on his name right now. So bear with me 1 second while I find it, because I'm blanking on the guy's name right now. It was announced today that he hired the attorney that Julian Assange got in order to get the deal that Julian Assange got. I'm not saying that that's Maduro's intention, try to get a deal, but at the same time, it is the attorney that Julian Assange had and got that plea deal that ultimately got Assange out of prison. So, here it is. His name is Barry Pollack, right? Barry Pollack. That's the attorney that Maduro has hired to lead his defense. So it's a damn good attorney there. So, yeah, I'm really, we'll see what happens here. But Maduro was arraigned earlier today. And if you guys don't know what an arraignment is, it's very simple. An arraignment is the initial appearance, your first appearance in court to hear the charges against you. You either plead guilty or not guilty. And then the next step would be, at least I'm not sure how it works in federal court exactly, but in most state courts, the next step would be a preliminary examination, which means they examine all the evidence against you and whether it should proceed to trial or not. It could be dismissed at that point, or you can waive your preliminary examination and go straight to trial. So that's the next step. Usually after the arraignment, Nicolas Maduro obviously pled not guilty. So in his arraignment, so yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's next. Whatever updates going on, I will update this on Friday's episode of Angel in the Afternoon, and we will discuss it with Alex and Witchy. I nearly called her Misty for some reason. I'm terrible with names, but yeah, I mean, so those are the next steps, and this indictment should be laughed out of court because there's nothing here that remotely is evidence or anything like that. But I mean, since judges are also politicians, they're not going to laugh this out of court the way that it should be laughed out of court because the White House wants this prosecution to happen clearly, even though there's not a shred of evidence for any of this, and it's just going to be a waste of everybody's time, taxpayer dollars. You got to get a jury together, I'm sure, in order to, if it does get to trial, and if Maduro doesn't, if Maduro, I'm assuming Maduro's going to want to go all the way with this and not just plead, not to get a sweetheart deal and plead guilty to a lesser charge or anything like that because he didn't do anything. So yeah, tell me what you guys think. Want to thank everybody for watching. If you like this, make sure you like and subscribe. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers in the INN YouTube channel. So we can get 3,000 subscribers soon. We'll do some sort of celebration. Don't know what, but we'll figure something out. Also, make sure you check out Indie's Indie News Now, which I'm assuming I'm streaming this Monday night, which is in about 4 or 5 hours. You guys will see this. So tomorrow night is Indie News Now with Indy. Wednesday, I presume, is the return of INN News with Reef and Colin. Thursday, I'm assuming Indy's going to do one of his shows there. I'm not sure which one. Friday, I'll be back with you with Angel in the Afternoon. We will further update this Venezuela story with more information. We'll also talk about Israel. We'll also talk about the Russian-Ukraine war, Israel-Gaza. So, yeah. So I, once again, want to thank everybody for watching this impromptu. The reason why I did this now is because I wasn't, like I said in the beginning, I wasn't going to do this on a Friday episode. I could, but it took me an hour just to read this indictment and analyze it. So I only have 2 hours, 2.5 hours at most on a live Angel in the Afternoon before we go. So there was no way I can spend an entire hour on the indictment when there's so many other things to cover. So that's why I did it now on my own with time to analyze this thing and time to give my thoughts, which I just did. So the next step after this is, I assume, it's a preliminary examination. It's at least it's how it works in most state courts. I'm not sure the federal system is obviously different, so I may be wrong on that. So let's see what happens. I will update this. INN will be on top of the Venezuela story, not just me, but the entire network. But I will be back with you at Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern, to further update this and further discuss the most recent updates up to Friday, up to that point. So, and I expect that I will finally be able to do Pro Wrestling Talk, 8 o'clock with Richie and Alex. So check that out as well on the INN The Ocho channel. Make sure to subscribe to that channel too. With 20 subscribers, we have 100. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, please. Subscribe to all the channels. I want to thank everybody for watching. Make sure you do all that good stuff. Give me a like, subscribe. And I'm going to see you guys on